Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to my channel. Um, just for those people that haven't really watched any of my YouTubes, I've got several YouTubes out already. I've done 5, and if you want to watch, you best start from number 1. This is now number 6. My talks are around people that have been through domestic violence, sexual abuse, losing a parent tragically, or a sister or a brother, sibling, the impact that childhood sexual abuse and domestic violence can have on your life. This is one of the reasons why I am doing this YouTube, because I want to reach out to as many people as possible that have been through similar issues as myself, due to the circumstances I mentioned earlier. I also lost, just to add, I also lost my son through suicide due to the impact of domestic violence. And due to the impact of domestic violence, I became separated from 2 of my children. And the impact that all of the above can have on your life can have a really, really bad impact on you in the way you deal with your life, the way you deal with your emotions, the way you deal with your everyday life, whether it be your partner, relationships, work, education, friends, colleagues, everything. It can impact on every single corner of your life. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about my experiences, because my experiences, which if you've watched any of my YouTubes, you'll realise that, I did come from a really traumatic childhood that, impacted my life in such a way that it was really, really difficult to go forward. But things happened to me later on in life that led me to look inside myself and rise above everything that had happened and the mess that was in my head, and want to reach out to as many people as possible out there that feel trapped in here, trapped in their head, and can't move forward. They've probably got depression, anxiety, they've probably got eating disorders, they probably have drank alcohol, they've probably taken drugs, or they've just become mentally ill. My biggie was OCD, and I knew that was, it was a control thing, controlling everything inside my head. And I came to a point in my life where I, excuse me, I couldn't go forward in any direction. I was in a very dark place, basically, because I couldn't, it was almost like I'd fell in this hole and I couldn't climb out. And fortunately I did. I did climb out this hole and I did move forward. And now, I want to help as many people as I possibly can. Just to recap on some of the stuff that I've mentioned in the past, going forward, I've done some work with the NSPCC on the radio, and my information is on their database now, for opportunities going forward with sharing my story for educational purposes. The BBC, the ITV, which I have had the opportunity of participating with, and probably more in the future. If it helps people, then that's what my ultimate goal is about. But every week I've been sharing my story at different stages, from 5 to 8, say from 8 to 15 and so forth. But at this YouTube this week, it's from around the age. I've got some notes because I forget sometimes. I have mental blocks and I don't know where I am. So, everything comes from the heart. Everything's still there, but sometimes I write things down just as a prompt, just as a reminder. So if you see me look down, it's because I'm looking through where I'm at, what I'm talking about, and I want to make sure that I don't mention names. I want to make sure that I don't say anything to offend, but some of my material is upsetting in some of my past YouTubes. Some of my material is going to be very, very upsetting in the future with future videos. But that's, just to give you the heads up, and I do put warnings on every single time. So today I'm going to be talking about what happened to me between the ages of 15 and 17. Now, there's a lot I can't fit in. There's a lot I can't share with you. Some of it I can, some of it I just touch on. There's a lot more story than what I'm actually talking about, but I can't obviously fit all that in, but I'll do my utmost. And just to remind everyone, if anybody wants any advice or pointing in the right direction on getting help or support or questions, or if they're angry or they want to say something, my email address is always included in my YouTube, which is sarah.ward@million.com, and I always put that underneath. And I can always also help you going forward with organisations to help with mental health issues, anything that you think you might be using to block out problems that you have going forward. It doesn't matter how little it is, it doesn't matter how big it is, there's always help out there. Anyway, going forward, this week it's slightly different. I'm going to start with a little bit of a story about something that was a bit scary, but something that was very funny. Now, this was, as I say, from the age of 15 to 18. My family and I had some very funny moments. My mother had bought this new cooker, and it was quite a modern cooker because we'd always been used to living in this house with everything old-fashioned. And for some unknown reason, it wouldn't light. It had got one of those igniters on it, and it wouldn't, it wouldn't light. I think it had like a battery inside it that worked the igniter, but we didn't realise that it obviously got some kind of safety mechanism inside it. And anyway, going forward, my sister and I was leaning over this cooker and trying to get it working, and nothing could come out of it, and we couldn't understand why. So we leaned over it, my sister and I. My mum was standing over the other side of the kitchen looking at us, hoping that we could try and work out why it wasn't lighting. So we'd got a match lit, which is something nobody should ever do, and we're leaning forward. Little did we know that there was already gas escaping out of it. Anyway, this enormous explosion happened, and all we could see was yellow, because it was a big ball of fire, just yellow, complete yellow flames, and it completely exploded. And it was like one of these cartoon films where your legs go up in the air and they go dead quick and you're just out. It was one of those things that's built in you to keep you safe, fight or flight things. And I just flew from the kitchen because all I could see was this yellow explosion. And because of the explosion and all the flames that went whoosh like that over our heads, right past us, My mother and my sister didn't see that I'd ran out of the house quickly, through the back door, through the back gate, and into the street, where I met all these people that had heard the explosion, and there was on their doorsteps, and my heart were racing. They all asked me what was wrong, but however, my mum screamed, "Where's my daughter?" My sister turned around and said, "Never mind about her, what about me?" So my mother thought I'd been disintegrated into thin air somehow, and my sister, all her eyelashes and her eyebrows had been singed, and a bit of her hair from all this fire. I think I had a few singes round my eyelashes and eyebrows, but nowhere near as much as my sister. And I tell you now, it was a very, very scary moment, even though we could, we laugh at it now. I mean, my sister's probably laughing her head off as she's listening to this right now, because she'll remember the moment like it was yesterday. But it was so funny but scary at the time. But nowadays, when you have cookers, my cooker just shuts off automatically when the gas seeps out of it, and that's one of the real safety mechanisms that's built in it, isn't it? So anyway, I'm just going to have a look at my paperwork, see where I'm at. So anyway, as I was saying, but that was funny. As I was saying, a few years passed and we continue to have our ups and downs, as most families do. But when I was about 17, I started doing a bit of babysitting for someone in the street. I remember being a few doors up and babysitting in someone's house with a friend of mine. And, excuse me. Sorry, I've lost where I'm at. Where am I? Someone's talking. Yes, here we are. I was standing on the doorstep and two young lads came walking past and started to talk to us, and I got talking to one of them, or should I say he got talking to me. He came across very, very confident, very, very chatty. He was dressed really smart in like a blazer type jacket and jeans and nice shoes, which was quite impressive. And he told me that he was in the army. That impressed me as well. But it made me feel, really good inside, because I'd never really experienced anybody that gave me any, attention or anything like that. So anyway, we'd been talking for a while, and on the doorstep, because we didn't invite them in, because you don't do that, do you? But then, excuse me. But then it's a phone as well. It rings, so sometimes it distracts me. I don't mean to be rude when I look down, but anyway, some weeks passed, and I remember I'd been babysitting again for someone else, and I must have mentioned the fact that I was babysitting for someone else, because I was babysitting at some other house a lot further away from where I lived, and I remember looking out the window, seeing this lad, this young chap that I'd been talking to previously, walking past, like on the other side of the road, and he'd got like a suitcase. He was obviously on leave from the army, and obviously he'd come to, I'd obviously mentioned to him that I was babysitting, and I'd obviously rambled on about where I was babysitting, and not realising that he was going to actually turn up at that house. I mean, obviously, he was intending to go back to his parents' house. And I remember looking out the window and seeing him walking past, and it scared the life out of me, because I'm actually on my my own in this house babysitting, and I didn't really want to invite him in because I'd got no confidence in myself, and I was nervous, I was scared, and I didn't know what to expect. I was naive. I didn't know anything about boyfriends or relationships, and I'd only ever experienced sexual abuse, so, with the opposite sex, so I didn't really know what to expect. Anyway, I don't think I let him in. I don't think I told him, but I felt really, really bad about that, because obviously he was wandering the streets looking for this house, and here I was, too nervous to let him in. This was how I used to be years ago. I was just, I used to just run from things because I was so nervous. Anyway, a few weeks passed and we did get back together. We did see each other and we started dating. And he took me out, he'd take me for a drink. Those days I was not really a drinker, I used to drink Babycham back then. Well, it was a very light bubbly drink and I could get drunk on that. It only took 3 drinks and I'd had enough. But however, I did continue to see this guy, and he treated me amazing and made me feel very special. We continued to see each other, and I remember him taking me back to his house, to his family's house, and meeting his mum and his stepfather. They made me feel so welcome. And it just felt amazing, to be wanted, someone paying me attention. And months had passed by and our relationship blossomed. But then I would say there was one particular day when I turned up at his parents' house, and my boyfriend was due home on leave on the Friday, and he came walking in, which was lovely to see him. His parents had made me very, very welcome, and obviously the scene had been set that particular night, and my boyfriend came into the room, got down on one knee and proposed to me. Oh my God. That was just amazing. I'd never experienced anything like that in my life. It was so beautiful. It was so special, and it made me feel so wanted and special. And we all had a little bit of a celebration, and it just felt amazing. I couldn't wait to get home to tell my family. And at the end of the night, after we'd finished, celebrating and all the excitement and everything, he took me home, dropped me off at home, where we were greeted with hostility from my mother. She was very angry with him. She told him to leave, get out of the house, and sent me to bed. I'm 17, nearly 18, and my mum's sending me to bed at 6 o'clock. Well, 6 o'clock most days, but it wasn't 6 o'clock then. It must have been about 10:30, 11 o'clock. But she went mad because I suppose, she was being protective. And I was crying in bed. My sister happened to be visiting, and she went out to calm him down because he was angry. I think his knuckles were pressing in the wall outside because he was so upset and so hurt, and he was expecting it to be really, really good news all round, and it wasn't, not for my mother. And she wouldn't accept it. And a couple of weeks passed, and my mum's hostile behaviour continued, and it wasn't very helpful for me because, here I am, 17, nearly 18, and back in those days you were quite mature, even though, in all honesty, I was still a damaged child, really, and extremely. I didn't know it at the time, because you think that at that age, you think you know everything. You think you can stand on your own 2 feet. But to be honest with you, I was quite a strong person, even though, I was really, really damaged from the trauma that I'd experienced, from losing my father to someone else killing him, and then the sexual abuse by 2 predators. And I've still got more stories to tell on that, because there is a third predator, and there's domestic violence along the way. That will come later. So you can imagine the impact everything had on me, even at 17, going on 18. I was just a mess inside, and only I didn't realise, I didn't understand that I was a mess, but, I thought I was doing the right thing. And I do believe in my heart I was doing the right thing, and, my boyfriend was one of the best things that ever happened to me. And I remember my mum's behaviour. She was also always so very angry with me, and I obviously didn't understand that was a lot to do with her own mental health. But there was one occasion where she really just lost it with me, and I couldn't stand it anymore, because I needed my relationship. That was important to me, and we were arguing, and I just left the house and I never came back again. I ran away and I went to live with my boyfriend's family, and they welcomed me with open arms and made me feel very, very welcome. And they wouldn't allow us to share a room, which I'll give them credit for. My mother was so angry, she sent my big sister to come fetch me back. But I'd been to the police to find out, because back then, 17, you couldn't really run away from home. It wasn't really the done thing. So I went to the police to find out if I was okay to do what I'd done, leave home. And they said as long as I was able to stand on my own 2 feet and support myself, there was absolutely no reason why, I couldn't leave home. So I accepted that. And when my sister turned up and told me that I needed to go back home, I told her what I'd done, that I'd been to find out if I was allowed within my rights to do that. And they said, yes, that's fine. And my sister was quite supportive anyway. And she went back and told my mother, but my mum was still angry, and she didn't want anything, to do with it, to do with me or my relationship. In fact, going forward, my husband, my future husband, and I, we were planning to get married, and my mother wanted to kind of control the wedding, and she wanted to make a cake, and my mother-in-law wanted to do things as well. And I don't think my mother liked it, because she wanted to be top dog, if you like. I mean, that was obviously a lot of issues going on for her. And unfortunately, when I did get married, the saddest thing is my mother didn't turn up for my wedding. Yeah, I had a lovely wedding. My sister turned up with her partner, but my mother didn't turn up. And that was really, really sad, because I felt that my mother let me down a lot, from when, especially when I'd been abused, because I felt like she didn't keep me safe from the abuse. I suppose inside I kind of blamed her for that, although parents don't always have any control over that, because predators, they know exactly what they're doing. They know how to groom people. They know how to get you on your own. They're very clever at doing that sort of thing. So my mother wasn't really, responsible for that, even though, parents do blame themselves and they feel that they didn't protect you enough. You can only do so much to protect your child. You don't always suspect that something like that is going to happen to your child. So, I get it now. I didn't get it then. But yes, going back to my future husband, living with his parents made me feel very, very welcome and made me feel at home. They looked after me, and they told my partner that he wasn't allowed to sleep in my room, but he did sneak into my room in the end. He did sneak into my room, and when it came to the intimate side of my relationship with my future husband, I was so naive. I didn't know anything about sex. I had to learn along the way. The only thing I'd ever experienced was abuse. So, when you've got two people being intimate together, I thought that, that my partner was doing really bizarre things with me, and it kind of freaked me out. Fortunately, my partner was very supportive. When he went back to camp, he bought me a book, and the following week he brought it and asked me, read this book. He left it with me, and it was called Everything You Want to Know About Sex But Afraid to Ask. Well, thank God he let me read that book, because that book helped me so much going forward. So yes, my future husband was very, very supportive of my problems. Also, I'd like to mention that, as I mentioned in my earlier YouTubes, I was a consistent bedwetter, and this problem carried over to my relationship. And I remember waking up one morning with my husband, and the bed was so wet. I was so embarrassed. I wanted the ground to open up and swallow me in. I wanted to literally run away because I was so embarrassed. Do you know what? My partner never said a word. He never said a word, and he was so supportive. I've got to give him a lot of credit for that. He really, really did support me through that. And, because I've got his support, I immediately stopped wetting the bed. I stopped having, the issues that I had in other areas of my life, and I felt a little bit more confident, because, he was somebody that wanted to pay me attention, and I'd never really experienced that before in my life. His family was making me feel like very welcome, and it was almost like, because I hadn't got my dad, I lost my dad when I was 5 years old. It was almost like that here was my mother and father. So yeah, that was a really, really